Hello, everyone. Today we're going to be discussing my 2020 Senate forecast as of October 29th, 2020. There comes a time every few months where I sit down and I pull up 100 Real Clear Politics tabs and just get ready to do a forecast. And today is one of those times. So I've already labeled the generally safe, and when I say safe, I mean things we already know where they're going. I'm not actually working with margins for these states, but mostly just we know where they're going as of now. They're not close at all. So we're going to start off with Minnesota, Lewis versus Smith. Smith is up 6.3. So I would say that's a likely margin for the Democrats. Next is Texas, which Cornyn is up 7.5, and so that would be likely for the Republicans. So, Alabama, so this is this is a state where the Republicans are expected to flip this state because Doug Jones is his approval rating is horrendous, and I say that nonpartisan. It is not a great approval rating, and many people in the state do not like him. So Tuberville's up 11, 12, 8 points, so that's a likely margin. So we're going to give Alabama to the Republicans for a likely margin. Next, we have Colorado. Hickenlooper was a good candidate fielded by the Democrats, and he is up 9 points, so that's a likely margin for the Democrats. What else? We have South Carolina. It was sort of narrowing up. People thought it was, but generally, latest polls, especially by New York Times/CNN, which is a very highly rated pollster, shows him up 6. So I could really say likely or lean margin, but I'm going to say likely because I do not think it will be close. Next is Montana. Steve Daines is doing pretty well. A lean margin for the Republicans. The Democratic candidate wasn't a bad candidate. Steve Bullock is not a bad candidate that the Democrats fielded, but Steve Daines just seems to be the better candidate, the more favored candidate. So the next one is Michigan, and Peters is up 7.6%, which is a likely margin. John James, he is a really good candidate, but in a state like Michigan, which on the presidential level is expected to go far to Biden, John James just really didn't have a chance in this state. So Michigan is likely for the Democrats in this state. So, okay, what else? This is Arizona, McSally versus Kelly. So Kelly's up 2.7. I will say that I think Mark Kelly will win by a greater margin than 2.7%. I don't know if it's likely or not, but I really think that this poll generally skewed the average. It really is an outlier poll because if you look here, most polls show Kelly up 11, 7%. So normally I would say likely, but I will have to characterize this as lean. And in Arizona, especially in 2018 when McSally ran, she was overestimated by the RCP average, and she was expected to win, and she lost. So I will say lean just because that's what the polls are saying, but generally I think McSally will lose by a greater margin than she is expected to. Now, where is it? So North Carolina is a very interesting state. So it is very narrow, and I will say it's narrow. There is most polls say he's up 3%. One says 1. Trafalgar generally skewed the average and said Tillis +2, probably just because they could. And I would say it could be closer. It could swing to the Republican side. It is very close, but generally, when we have a poll such as New York Times, CNN is saying it's 3, and a lot of other polls are saying it's around 4, 6. I will say it's lean for the Democrats, but I will say this: if one was going to flip, if one state was going to flip to the Republicans, it could be this one. This one could definitely be the one that flips. So Iowa. So here I'm gonna break off our CPA average for this just because of latest pollsters. So Iowa, Greenfield was started to get a very good lead around September, a little bit into October, but then Monmouth said that Greenfield was only up 2. And then we saw other polls such as New York Times Siena saying Ernst was up 1, Emerson saying Ernst was up 1, even Quinnipiac, which generally has a little bit of a outlier leftwards slant, but I wouldn't say it's completely incorrect. Even Quinnipiac says Ernst plus 2. So I would, even though the average says Greenfield plus 5, given these A plus pollsters, because I believe New York Times Siena is a plus pollster, Emerson's an A or A minus pollster, I believe, and Quinnipiac is a B plus, and they all say Ernst is leading. I would actually characterize Iowa for the Republicans for a tilt margin. So that's how I would characterize that. Next is Maine. Sarah Gideon has a pretty healthy lead above Susan Collins. She was a pretty good candidate fielded by the Democrats, but given Collins, her candidacy, which she's gone from a very popular senator to a very unpopular senator, given that she was not favored to win, close to the election. So, I would say Maine is a lean margin for the Democrats. Here we go. Okay, 2 more. So Georgia, it's the Georgias. So there's 2 Georgias. There's Georgia's Senate, which is Purdue versus Ossoff. Purdue is leading by 0.2%. Monmouth says Ossoff is leading, but then we have other pollsters, CBS News, Emerson saying Purdue's leading. So I will actually give this to the Republicans for a tilt margin, because originally I would say, originally I thought it was going to be a lean margin or even a likely margin, but that was generally before all these polls came out, because he was enjoying a pretty healthy lean margin lead, and now it's very close. So I will say it's a tilt margin for the Republicans, just because of the average and that a lot of these polls are saying Purdue is leading. The last one I'll characterize is Georgia's Senate special election. And I believe that'll be a lean Republican. And I'll tell you why. So basically, Warnock is up 13. So you'd be like, okay, well, the Democrats leading by 13%. Why am I not characterizing it for a Democrat? That's one Democrat, but if you look here, there's two Republicans that are dividing sort of the vote, but it's a runoff. So generally, if one of them leads, most of their votes will probably go to the Republican candidate. So, and we're seeing that the average only shows Warnock plus 36, but if you add the Loeffler and Collins, they're up generally around 44. So I would say that generally, I would say a Republican would most likely win in this scenario. So this is my projection. It shows 50-50. If Donald Trump would win, the Republicans would break the tie. If Joe Biden wins, the Democrats would break the tie. Now I'm kind of going to outline just quickly some states that could flip, that I do see flipping. I would say this could flip. The polls are narrowing up. I'm not saying it is. This is just happenstance. But that could flip. I would say, this could flip too. Iowa could flip, and that would be 53-47. And that's the only really Republican states I could see flipping, because Montana, I don't really see it flipping. Steve James is a very good candidate, fielded by the Republicans, or well, he's the incumbent, but and Steve Bullock is a pretty okay candidate, but he's very behind. So I don't see Montana flipping. So that in the best case scenario that I see for the Democrats, or at least a very good case scenario, the Democrats have 53 seats and the Republicans have 47. On the other hand, here I'll put it back to my normal projection. On the other hand, the Democrat states I see flipping to the Republicans that I could see flipping is North Carolina. There was a sexting scandal there. It really didn't impact Cal Cunningham too much, but I could see that potentially flipping, and these are like sort of good case scenarios for either party. I could see Maine flipping, but I don't think it's too likely. I mean, if you look at wherever honestly forgot where Maine was. Here it is. If you look at this one Quinnipiac is like 12, but as I said, Quinnipiac generally has a little bit of a leftward slant. But I mean, I'm saying it could, but very narrowly in most circumstances if it did. And then Arizona, I don't 100% see Arizona flipping, but it does. The RCP average only has her up 2.7, so I would say it could flip. This is, again, best case scenarios, but it could. And that would also leave Republicans at 53 and Democrats at 47. So generally, I do think my forecast does say it would be a tie, and I'm going to hold myself to that for now. And again, it's only like 5 days to the election, 6 or 5 days to the election. So this is my Senate projection. Thank you for watching, and peace.